Hi there and welcome to Fuzzy on the Details. My name is Fuzzy and today we're going to be talking about tags and some specific ways you can do more with them in the Marvel Multiverse role-playing game. Together we're going to be taking these simple labels that are often overlooked and turn them into catalysts for storytelling. Tags have so much potential. These are little nuggets of storytelling opportunity. They invite interaction and narrators, myself included, rarely take advantage of them enough. Tags are one of two types of labels that a Marvel Multiverse character can have, and in the core rulebook they are described as having only a narrative effect in the game. And for the most part this is true, the heroic tag might be an exception, and that's why characters can have an unlimited number of tags. Now, beyond the tags that are automatically assigned to your character from origins and occupations, players sometimes don't give much thought to what tags they select after that point, and that's a shame because dealing with the consequences of having a challenging tag is one way to get karma in the game. Challenging labels are defined as not entirely beneficial or problematic in some way, and when a character has to deal with a headache associated with this tag, they can get a karma point. Now, it's pretty clear what the rules have in mind is something like the poor tag. I mean, the definition flat out says that the poor tag can cause all sorts of problems. And Spider-Man is the classic example here, going all the way back to Spider-Man number 1 in 1963. The big problem in his life was money. This mundane pressure in his life had such an impact on the choices he could make and his arc as a character. Does he quit school? Does he juggle school and getting a part-time job? Does he exploit his powers for gain? These are great examples of how day-to-day challenges can drive a character's story arc. But how does this play out when Spider-Man is on a team? Well, sometimes these so-called challenging labels can be all too easily mitigated when you're on a team. I mean, what does the poor tag mean to somebody who's teammates with a genius billionaire playboy philanthropist? So here's what's happening. We're only looking at a small percentage of the tags as being challenging, and sometimes the problems that those tags generate are very easily compensated for. And that means not a lot of karma is being distributed in this manner, and therefore people start paying less and less attention to these tags. Fixing this requires a shift in thinking. But don't worry, I've got two really important tips for you that I honestly think will change the way you play this game. And after that, I'm going to give you a whole system that you can use to take your emergent storytelling to a new level. Tip number 1. Every single tag in this game can and should be challenging. Why restrict yourself to the small percentage of the tags in the game that have overtly negative connotations to drive your roleplay? Why not give your players abundant opportunities to earn that extra karma through struggle, conflict, and growth? Here's an example of what I'm talking about. Let's look at the reverse of the poor tag, rich. The way it's written, it looks completely positive, right? You can buy whatever you want, that's great. But Tony Stark is rich because he has a business. And if he isn't actively protecting his business interests, that will lead to problems. And it does, like all the time in the comics. Look at the Armor Wars event. Tony discovers somebody has stolen his technology, and getting to the bottom of this mystery consumes him, and all sorts of chaos ensues. In dealing with the situation, Tony becomes quickly overwhelmed by a variety of issues. These panels from Iron Man 226 are a goldmine of ideas. Stark Enterprises is getting sued by a villain and a cult. He's having public relation issues and problems with investors. If he doesn't handle these issues, he could lose his business and maybe the rich tag in the process. Now, this was a time before the world knew that Tony Stark was Iron Man. So, to distance his business from all of this negative press and these legal issues, Tony actually fires Iron Man. This comic makes me think that the more positive tags have even more role-playing potential than the negative ones, and they can really shake things up in your campaign if they are not treated seriously by the player. After all, as a renowned narrator and storyteller once said, "Mo money, mo problems." Okay, tip number 2. In addition to expanding the definition of challenging to include as many tags as you can, you should also be actively looking for opportunities to insert these challenges into your game. You can make random checks on a regular basis to see if one of these challenges pops up in your character's story arc. So why random? A few months back, game designer John Harford and I discussed some principles of emergent storytelling and how perfect a modern setting like the Marvel Multiverse RPG is for some of those old school concepts that seem to only get used in fantasy RPGs. I encourage you to watch that video, links in the description, but here's a nugget that I wanted to repeat for you guys. Put pressure on your heroes, inject some randomness, allow your players to solve and prioritize or ignore these random situations that pop up as they see fit. And I guarantee you they will become more engaged in the story because this is their story that they are responsible for steering. And to a lot of folks, that's where the fun is versus passively being taken on a roller coaster ride that they feel the narrator has just generated for them and they can't control the ups and downs. When you inject a little randomness into your game, it's kind of like you and the players are on the same side versus the dice versus these random tables. That's a pretty cool place to be from a storytelling perspective. Let me show you how this can work. And again, these two tips, very important. 1, treat all your tags as challenging, and 2, randomly and regularly introduce challenges into your game. Here's what we're going to do. First thing, every game you play, every game you narrate, choose a random character. Roll a die, pick names out of a hat. You guys are gamers. You know what random is. Second thing, select one random tag for that lucky character. Then, select a difficulty. To do that, roll 1d6. 1 is trivial, 2 is easy, and so on. Skip challenging because no modifier is kind of boring. 4, 5, 6, that's going to be difficult, ridiculous, and absurd. Then when was the last time you had a trivial or an absurd target number in your game? Live a little. And this is another way to inject a little old school into your Marvel RPG game. If you were playing D&D back in the day, every once in a while you might roll really bad on a random encounter table and have to deal with a black dragon when you're like 2nd level. And yes, you had to run away, and yes, sometimes that was a really fun game. Not every challenge in this game has to be perfectly balanced. Trust me, it'll be okay. Let's take a look at the math. So you take that modifier that you just rolled and you apply it to your standard target number for the character's rank accordingly. So if Iron Man at rank 4 starts with a challenging target number of 14, and then he rolls a 6 for an absurd modifier, you wind up with a 20 target number. Is that so crazy for a rank 4 character? I don't think so. Maybe he needs help from a teammate to get it done, or maybe he has to spend a karma point, but it's not outside of the realm of possibility to hit a 20 when you're rank 4. And here's the fun part. You roll for a random challenge. Here's a table of challenges I put together for you with the rich tag in mind. We're going to go through a couple of examples here, but you can read the whole thing at your leisure. Link in the description to get the PDF. And I think once we go through a couple of items here, you're going to get a sense for the pattern, and you're going to be able to come up with some of these on your own. Now let's talk through some. On a 1d6, Tony Stark finds out that there's some charity he's contributed to that has actually got some ties to an evil organization in your game. If you've got factions in your game, like we discussed in my emergent storytelling video, use one of those. If you don't, ask your player if they have any suggestions what that group could be. This is a built-in way to get your players more involved and more invested in your game. Notice I've added some suggestions here for how a teammate might help. This is another way to give even more attention to those labels that often get overlooked. So what happens if Tony Stark fails this check? Well, maybe it means he's got to make a huge contribution to a different charity to make up for this in the eyes of the press, or maybe his funds get locked up for a while as he's being investigated. Either way, this means he could lose access to the rich tag for, say, 1d6 weeks. Now let's set the target number at the other end of the spectrum, and it's an easy win for Tony as it's a trivial challenge. Great, he gets that karma point, why not? And so do any teammates that helped him out. But here's the real secret. Whether the hero made or failed that check, they should have some questions. Who ran the story in the press? What was their ulterior motive? Was this charity always connected to this evil org? Was it taken over as a front just to disgrace Tony Stark? This line of questioning could easily lead to an entire adventure, all because of one lonely little tag and a little random chance. And finally, let your player choose whatever ability score they want to use to address this issue. If Tony goes on a talk show to attack these rumors with a charm offensive, maybe ego is appropriate. Does he investigate this cover-up by digging through piles and piles of paperwork? Maybe that's logic. Maybe he sneaks into the enemy headquarters and tries to steal the evidence that will exonerate him. Maybe that's agility. Or maybe he threatens a bunch of people to give up that evidence. That could be melee. Totally up to you. Of course, each one of those choices could have ramifications in your game. That's, again, just part of the fun. So I'm not going to go through every one of these, but they were really a lot of fun to come up with. And again, you can find a link to a PDF with these tables in the video description. I will release more of these through my Patreon at the free level, so please check that out if you haven't already, if you're interested in more of this good stuff. I like the third one on this list because the honest trait is criminally underused. I think it's a lot of fun. Tony Stark could get hit with a tax audit or some other type of financial scrutiny because of some lies, and an honest teammate might be able to vouch for him and help see truth prevail. When was the last time you asked or heard your narrator ask, does anyone have the honest trait? I guarantee you it does not happen very often. But if you as the narrator start to regularly ask your players about these lesser used traits and tags, you will see them get chosen in character creation more often. All right, let's take a look at one more tag that has no real negative associated with it, backup. This is pretty powerful, right? But surely being a part of an organization that offers backup can't be all roses, can it? I love the idea of a character with the backup tag getting a text in the middle of the night from Nick Fury to go help out some other S.H.I.E.L.D. member on their mission. Does your character fail the role to help? Well, maybe that means he loses the ability to call for backup until he can make up for it, or maybe he loses membership in the org. And listen, feel free to tweak the suggestions I've got here for what types of characters can help, but I just love the idea of having a teammate so abrasive that when you say, okay, I'm going to help, I'm going to bring my buddy along, they say, hey, you know what? Maybe we're good here, thanks. In any event, this selection could lead to a whole adventure in itself, just as we discussed. What was the problem that you were called in as backup for? Is this the first hint for a much bigger issue to come? Well, that's up to you and your players. A lot of the results here for backup only apply after a character actually requests backup. So in this case, you might roll and nothing happens, and then you would wait until the character rolls for backup and then apply this result. Because not every one of those calls for backup is going to go smoothly. Maybe in the rush to get to you, your backup has a car accident or breaks some laws or puts somebody in danger in their rush to get to you. Another example of what could happen is on a roll of a 5, your backup just doesn't arrive. Dispatch says there are just too many requests right now and they don't have the resources to get the backup to you safely. Maybe you have a character with the rich tag, make a hefty donation to this organization to pay for more resources or more vehicles that will help backup get there more reliably in the future. Either way, having your players help each other out in this way is even more satisfying than when they come up with a good cinematic explanation for a help teammate reaction. 2 more notes. If you want to incorporate other subsystems like the hero reputation guidelines into these roles, go for it. And remember, there are rules in the game for losing and gaining tags. Moon Knight currently has the poor tag, but there was definitely a time in his history when he had the rich tag. And remember, if you like these tables and you want to see more, I encourage you, please join my Patreon. At the free tier, I'm going to give these away, but the folks in the paid tier will be the ones deciding on which tables I work on. That's all I've got for you guys today, but do me a favor, leave a comment and let me know what you think about injecting this type of randomness into your game. We've seen a lot of adventures recently that do have some random tables in them, and we've seen these pop up in the rules more often, so I think there's a lot of potential here, not only for things like tags, but maybe for some other stuff as well that we can explore in some future videos. So please leave me a comment, let me know your thoughts, and as always, thank you guys so much for the support. Check out the Patreon, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.